I think agriculture is at the center of everything we do here at Farm Credit, and so the importance is we really do focus on that. We're not focused on commercial banking or business or deposits. We're here to lend money to farmers and ranchers right here in our territory.
We use an operating line every year, and knowing that we can count on that operating line and knowing that they are willing to sit down and talk about buying a piece of land is extremely important. And Farm Credit, they understand our business, they understand what we're doing out here, they understand what we're trying to do and where we're going.
Yeah, I think the importance of having a lender like Farm Credit, like us, is that we know agriculture. And so we're only focused on ag and ranching and rural America. We're not focused on, other outside issues. And so we know it, we live it, and we're here to lend to it.
Entering now, Jane Goldie, Haley Morris, Katie Powell, Anna Vetter, and David Vetter. Class complete. Colby Hales is from Casper, Wyoming, where he works as a livestock judging coach and agriculture instructor at Casper College. As a student, Colby attended Casper College and competed on the livestock judging team. From there, he attended Colorado State University, where he also competed on the livestock judging team and received his bachelor's degree in agriculture education. Following graduation from Colorado State, Colby attended the University of Wyoming to work towards a master's degree in animal science and also worked as the assistant livestock judging team coach. After college, he taught high school agriculture until his present position at Casper College. Colby also currently raises a small club lamb flock with his family.
Well, folks, good morning. First of all, thank you for allowing me and asking me to come out and sort through your county fair here this week. This is my favorite time of the year, and I love judging county fairs. I think it's a blast, and what a good way to start out here with our senior showmanship. I think a really good set of these seniors, and since we have so few of them, I'm going to try to be pretty brief, but I'll go through and discuss each one of them here on the microphone, then tell you how I like them. We'll start there just talking about the young lady there up at the front of the line here. To me, that young lady is very calm, very collected in how she handles herself. To me, when we get that ewe-lamb prop there on the side, we can let her get just a little weak, just a little easy there in terms of her top line and her spine. We'll let her neck kind of sink down in her just a little bit. But I think that young lady, like I said, just a very calm, collected individual that I think is doing a good job. Young lady right behind her there, I think another one that very intense, and she's done a great job of getting that sheep presented here this morning. Kind of the same story in some aspects. When we get her set into motion, that sheep will kind of shut down on her there just a little bit. If we can kind of just tap that sheep in the rib just a shade more or something, just to get him trotting around just a little bit, mainly in the notion that that sheep's got just a little extra chest, he's got just a little extra shoulder, so we get him moving just a shade faster, we can actually make him look just a little more up-fronted and his neck attachment look just a shade better. Kind of the same thing we get him propped there on the side, is we'll let his neck sink just a little too far forward, in my opinion. We can get his neck back up into him just like that. That's perfect. That's a good change. I think the young lady does a good job. Young lady with the blue weather there right behind her. To me, I like just how natural that young lady is. I think a very good job as far as setting that sheep up quick and fast. And that's one thing that I personally actually prefer about what she does, is reaching back, grabbing those legs with her hands, getting them, that sheep set up to the best she can. I think she does a good job. She gets that sheep to be real tall fronted. Like I said, the way she just positions herself is very natural and upright, which I like. To me, maybe we get that sheep just a little easy there in terms of his loin, and he's kind of a hard sheep to show in the notion that he looks good with just a little extra stretch because it makes him look up fronted. But the downfall is we also sacrifice just a little bit of top line strength in that sheep. But I think that young lady does a really good job. Young lady right behind her, another one that awesome as far as just presentation of that sheep. She's got a good sheep to show as far as just build and quality in that weather. The downfall is, once again, more positives, I guess. I like her intensity. I like how tough that young lady is in addition to that. Where I want to change her just a little bit, and I said she has a good sheep to show just because his build and his silhouette's good. Where that sheep struggles just a little bit is he wants to keep sucking back on her, wants to pull back on her there just a shade, so we kind of make that sheep look just a little hookier-legged. Honestly, that's probably as good of a look and as good of a presence as we've gotten here throughout our drive. But again, very, very competitive archer in the hunt. Then the young man here at the back. I think a very, very competitive young man. I just talked about the young lady there with the blue sheep, just upright and natural. That young man, as far as the pace and the speed of how we get that sheep moved around the ring, I think is exactly right. In addition to that, I think he gets probably the most out of that sheep as far as that sheep's look and his quality. A very, very competitive young man. Really good set, but to me, I think there's an individual that wins, and in my opinion, and I mean it as a giant compliment, not necessarily a disservice to anybody else, but I think the young man wins for fun. Congratulations for him, or to him. He's going to go ahead and be our champion. Now, I do think it gets close from here. I think there's some trade-offs. Once again, to me, between second and third is probably where it gets the tightest. We've got one where a sheep doesn't want to quite cooperate. We got one where we probably don't get the best look of that particular sheep. In my opinion, though, I think it makes the next most logical sense to move right one spot ahead. Young lady right behind or in front of him is going to go ahead and be your reserve champion. Congratulations. And I said it was close between second and third. Young lady with the blue sheep, we're just going to go right there in line. I think you very well deserve to be third. Congratulations once again. Young lady right in front of her, you'll be fourth. Young lady, you'll be fifth. Nice job to those senior showmen. If you would, please congratulate those young people.
Results from senior showmanship: Grand Champion David Vetter, Reserve Champion Anna Vetter, Third place Katie Powell, Fourth Haley Morris, and Fifth Jane Goldie. Intermediate showmanship: First Call, Jordan, Credible, Haley, Audrey Harrell, and Olivia Powell. Entering the ring, Jordan Credible, Audrey Harrell, and Olivia Powell. Class complete.
another good class here in these intermediates. And I went through and before I talk them on the mic, I wanted to kind of explain some things up in person to them on a couple things that I think they can work on, but also some things that I think they do really well, because I think each of these three do some things exceptionally well. I'm going to do it the exact same way that I did the seniors, and we'll just kind of talk through them here real quick, and then I'll tell you how I like them here once we get through that. The young lady with the spec sheep up front, to me, that young lady, when she gets that sheep propped up here from the side, to me, that sheep has as good of an image and as good of a look as any of the sheep that we have in here. To me, how she positions that sheep's head and neck, I think, is very, very appropriate. Where that sheep's hind leg is set, to me, is appropriate for that sheep, and especially where her flank line sits in her, to me, where her hind leg is placed actually fits her quite well. Biggest downfall is her sheep just doesn't want to be a dancing partner today, unfortunately, because that sheep will fight her pretty hard. The other thing that I told the young lady is we need to take just a little breath and kind of slow down there just a little bit. She'll get just a little jerky in how she wants to transition from side to side, but I think a very competitive young lady, we just need to slow her down there just a shade. Young lady here in the middle, to me, the big thing that I told her is that sheep, she's at 100% brace. We need to back down on that sheep to almost a 50% brace, because he'll overdrive on her there just a shade. But once again, I think she, as far as where she positions herself, her stance, the way she holds that sheep's head is very, very appropriate. In addition to that, once again, I think where rear leg is set in that sheep is very good. We just get him overdriving just a stretch to where his hind leg will pop behind him there just a little, but a very, very competitive young lady. And then the young lady here at the back, I told her what I wanted to change from me personally is how she holds that sheep's head. The way she's got it fixed right now, to me, that's my personal preference and how we got that fixed. I think that young lady does a good job, and the main reason I told her I wanted to change that is because to me, when we get that sheep's nose right in the crook of your elbow, we have way more leverage as far as placing that sheep's neck just a little further back into him. And I think now that we've got that fixed, she does a good job. Maybe at times we get that sheep just a little camped out underneath of himself. Definitely not right now, but maybe just a little more inconsistent as far as where we have feet and legs placed. I know we only got the three intermediates, but I think they each do a really good job. I don't know as if there necessarily is a right answer, but I'll go with my personal preference. Young lady here in the middle, she's going to go ahead and be our champion. Young lady up front, you're going to be reserve. Young lady in the back, you'll be third. Congratulations.
First call for juniors: Cody Harrell, McCrae McLennan, Delaney Vetter, JC Vetter. Results from intermediate: grand champion Audrey Harrell, reserve champion Jordan Credewell, and third place was Olivia Powell. Junior showman entering the ring: McCrae McLennan, JC Vetter, Cody Harrell, and Delaney Vetter. Class complete.
Well, a real good set of juniors here once again, and actually, as far as I'm concerned, I would make a pretty hard argument that this might be as deep of a division as what we've had here yet of any of the age divisions that we've judged. I think a real good set of them. Same story. I'm just going to go through, and since we have so few of them, I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to talk them each individually here on the mic. Tell you how I like them here at the end. Young man here up front. I think that young man's a perfectionist, in my opinion, and that's to his appreciation, but also to his detriment in some aspects, and especially with the sheep that maybe doesn't want to cooperate. Because man, that look right there, I think that sheep looks the part, and especially with our juniors being a little height disadvantaged, that's as good of a look up front as we can get in that particular sheep. Once again, the sheep just doesn't maybe want to just cooperate quite as good, but once he gets that sheep stuck, I think hind leg placement is right. That sheep, once again, up front is as good as we can get there, and then on top of it, the way that young man positions himself and presents that sheep's head, I think is very good, and I think a competitive young man. Young lady there in the second slot there, I think another one. Once she gets that sheep stuck outside of one time, that sheep doesn't move again, and in my opinion, that sheep's set up in a very appropriate manner. And again, I like where she positions herself and how she gets the most out of that sheep when she gets to driving that guy. To me, if we're going to pick a hole in her, maybe gets just a little weaker and easier there in his top line. That change that you just made right there is just a skosh harder of a drive out of that sheep. I actually think helped quite a bit. He'll get just a little lazy on you, but I think a very competitive young lady. Young man there in the third slot. Another one that I think, as far as just how efficient and how quick that young man gets that sheep set up, I think is very good. Very calm and very collected. In my opinion, we maybe gets that sheep just a little overstretched, or sometimes those legs just aren't quite square, in my opinion. And then the other thing that I change about you, young man, is you almost want to mug that sheep's head there just a little bit. Kind of open up your hands and kind of spread your hands out just a little bit. That way we can get just a little more just appreciation out of that sheep's head. And then the other, we go to fitting that sheep. Get that sheep's legs blended just a shade better to where it's a very seamless transition from that sheep's forearm down into his leg wool there. But I think that young man does a good job. Then the young lady here in the back, a lot the same story as the young lady we just talked about there in the second hole. I think once she gets that sheep stuck, that sheep doesn't move again, and the way she gets that sheep's head positioned, I think, is right. We might want to let that neck sink just a little too far forward at times, and at times also, I think we get that sheep just a little overstretched, and we got to be real careful on him, because once again, the way his underline balance is constructed right there at his loin, we get him overdriving. We'll actually take a little dip there out of his loin, and we cut him up there back in through his flank, and so get just a little less of a stretch on that sheep, in my opinion. But I think that young lady does a really good job. Very competitive set of juniors, and as I said earlier on another class, I don't know as if there necessarily is a right answer within here. I think you can develop a couple different arguments as far as how you want to go. My personal preference and my personal favorite, the one that's been the most consistent throughout the entire drive, young lady there that we talked about second, she's going to go ahead and be your champion. I think where it gets close here is between second and third. A lot the same story as what I talked about earlier. We've got a sheep that doesn't want to cooperate but looks the part when it does. We've got a sheep that maybe we get just a little overdriven that wants to cooperate. Again, I think it's very close. My personal preference, young man up front, you're going to go ahead and be reserved. Young lady in the back, you'll be third. Young man there will be fourth. Congratulations to all of our junior exhibitors. My compliments to them.
Results from junior showmanship: Grand Champion J.C. Vetter, Reserve Grand Champion McLennan, third place Delaney Vetter, and fourth place Cody Harrell. There will be a 5-minute break starting now till market The first class will be the feeder class. Olivia Powell and Katie Powell. Tags number 49 and 45.
I think agriculture is at the center of everything we do here at Farm Credit, and so the importance is we really do focus on that. We're not focused on commercial banking or business or deposits. We're here to lend money to farmers and ranchers right here in our territory.
We use an operating line every year, and knowing that we can count on that operating line and knowing that they are willing to sit down and talk about buying a piece of land is extremely important. And Farm Credit, they understand our business, they understand what we're doing out here, they understand what we're trying to do and where we're going.
Yeah, I think the importance of having a lender like Farm Credit, like us, is that we know agriculture, and so we're only focused on ag and ranching and rural America. We're not focused on, other outside issues, and so we know it, we live it, and we're here to lend to it.
The first class needs to be coming, so the feeder class, Olivia Powell and Katie Powell, please come to the show ring. Entering the ring, Olivia Powell and Katie Powell.
get into our lone feeder class here, and a nice pair of these sheep that were just a shade under making weight. We're going to leave them how they stand. Young lady up front's going to go ahead and win our feeder sheep class here, and plain and simple, between the pair, there's just more of her in the grand scheme of the world. She's got more back shape, she's got more width than just skeleton in her. From just a balance perspective, we probably need to stouten her feature up there just a shade and drive her chest floor up there. But a good, just kind of a good market lamb that's going to go ahead and win this one. The young lady sheep that's going to come in second, that sheep's quite a bit more just up and out, and I like her extension. And she is just stouter in terms of her feature. Downfall is she doesn't match it with just maybe quite as much muscle. She's just a little sharper there down her top. We need to put more just shape and turn there right through the base of her stifle and her leg. Nice set. Congratulations to these exhibitors. My compliments.
Please don't forget to go to the backdrop and take your picture. And Katie will give you time to go get your other 2 sheep. Don't worry about it. First class of market sheep. These sheep weigh 108 to 109.
good class, and I think specifically a real good class winner here in our first class. And even though this sheep's, we're in our lightweights here, I think we've got a sheep that wins, that can be a legitimate contender here, in my opinion. That sheep, as far as I'm concerned, just muscularity and athleticism, I think that sheep's real good. The sheep's got a good turn there right through the base of his leg and his stifle. He handles good, and especially at a lightweight, the way that sheep's loin edge handles, I think, is really good. I'd like to criticize them just a shade in class, especially those class winners, so then that way when we bring them back out in our champion drive, then my comments can be just a little shorter and everybody can kind of get into my head on what I'm thinking. When we get that sheep set into motion, I do think right there at the edge of his shoulder, he'll get just a little rounder, and I wish we could maybe just drive him up in his chest there just a shade. But I think that sheep needs to win this class and does so quite handily. That's a nice market lamb to go ahead and win our lightweights. Now, I think second and third get close, because to me, the blue sheep, in my opinion, maybe isn't just quite have as much doability, but that sheep's got some length, some extension, and to me, resembles some balance, probably just a shade more than the one we have in third. And not to mention, that sheep's probably got just a shade more rack shape, maybe just a shade more rack width in addition to that. That's why that weather's going to go ahead and end up second. Then the young lady sheep in third. Again, a growthy kind of a sheep that's got, like I said earlier, some doability. To me, we need to make that sheep balanced just a shade better, put just more shape and more turn in that guy. Congratulations to those exhibitors. If you would, please congratulate them.
Entering the ring is David Vetter and Jane Goldie. These sheep weigh 112 to 116. Another real good class, and I think they fall fairly logically. We've got two nice sheep in here. To me, our class winner, though, man, that's a show sheep as far as I'm concerned. That sheep, you start him at the ground. I think his hind leg is absolutely legit. I love his hip structure, and that sheep's underline balance, I think, is textbook. Not to mention, we bring in the market lamb fundamentals back into that. That sheep handles with a ditch running down his back. His rib cage is awesome. That sheep's neck attachment to finish his look off, I think, is really good. We could tuck the edge of his shoulder in there just a little bit and then just take a little shoulder point away from him. But I'm being pretty picky on a sheep that I like a lot about. That's a show sheep that wins this particular class. Young lady's ewe lamb that's going to come in second. That's a big, burly, stout featured one in my opinion. I like her in terms of just her stoutness of feature and her extra just width and dimension. To me, she just doesn't balance maybe quite as just elite as what that sheep does that wins. We need to drive her chest floor up in her. She'll get just a little rounder there in her shoulder, put just a little more turn there right through the base of her leg. A very nice class, real nice class winner. Congratulate those exhibitors, please. Hey, we needed you to go to the backdrop to take pictures. Adults from the last class, David Vetter first and Jane Goldie second. All right, entering the ring, Jane Goldie, McCrae McLennan, and Olivia Powell. These sheep range from 119 to 120.
another good class here that, once again, I think falls fairly logically, but, we still got a good top pair. I just try not to overthink it there too hard. We've got a big, burly, manly one that's going to go ahead and win this particular class. That sheep, just from a muscularity standpoint, he's got as much just stoutness and power and just outright mass as anything in here. Is that sheep necessarily just the most awesome to look at up front? No, maybe not. We could maybe extend him out just a little bit, but I still think he balances good enough. And like I said, that's the big, burly, manly one to go ahead and use within this class. The sheep that winds up in second, to me that sheep maybe does read just a little more athletic just in terms of the shallowness of that sheep's body. And he's still got some muscle. There's still some power in that sheep. In relation to our class winner, though, he does narrow up there just a shade. We need to change the set of that sheep's hock and make his spine and his top line come in there just a little better. But a nice weather that winds up there in second. We got the silver sheep that's going to wind up in third that I think's long-bodied. There's some production in that sheep. Again, we just need to make that sheep just a little more shapely, put just a little more muscle in that guy. Congratulations to this class. Give those guys a nice hand if you would.
Results from that class: McCrae McLennan first, Jane Goldie second, and Olivia Powell third. I'd also like to remind you today's livestock show is being live streamed. If you would like to watch that, it's CSU Extension, Arapahoe County. And then afterwards, the kids can also watch it on their YouTube page. And this is all presented by Farm Credit of Southern Colorado. Next class of market: Olivia Powell, McCrae McLennan, Jordan Credible, and Delaney Vetter. Grilled cheese. Entering the ring: Olivia Powell, Jordan Credible, McCrae McLennan, and Delaney Vetter. These sheep weigh from 122 to 125.
Another good class here, and a good class winner that's my speed, just as far as athleticism and just quality there from the side. You know, like we talked to that young man there in showmanship, you know, that's a big, tall sheep, and so with him being at a little bit of a height disadvantage, it's a little harder to probably get the most out of that sheep's front end. But I think that sheep, when he's in motion, he's as good as maybe anything that we've seen here today. Hip and hind leg design and still neck attachment when we get him in motion. That's a nice sheep that wins this class, and for those of you sitting around ringside, I'm sure you're probably thinking right now that I might not be the most consistent guy in the world, because the sheep that came in the last class is big, burly, stout, and manly. We've got a sheep that wins this class that to me maybe could use just a shade more punch, but to me he's got just an outright quality advantage within this class. I think that sheep is awesome to look at there from the side. Once again, I think he just wins for fun in this particular set. Now 2 and 3, those are the two that gets close for me, because the young lady's spec that's going to wind up winning this class, to me she's as good as anything in here as far as just her body shape and her rib cage. That sheep, her other big advantage is I think the set of her hind leg is a little more appropriate, and not to mention I think that also helps that ewe lamb just line out and balance maybe just a shade better. She's just a little bit more correct there in terms of her top line balance than the sheep that ends up in third. You know, if we change that sheep that winds up in second, she probably needs another drink. She's probably just a little dehydrated at this point and a little looser there in terms of her skin, and we could drive her chest floor up in her just a little bit, but that's to be expected necessarily with her breed type, with that little extra chest. Now the sheep in third, the reason that pair's close is because you don't even have to handle that sheep, and she has a great big giant ditch running down her back. That sheep's rack is gigantic, and on top of that, that sheep just has an outright muscle advantage as a whole. Where that sheep needs changed, in my opinion, and the reason that wether ends up going third, right there over the edge of his loin, I think that sheep needs to be fixed there. We could put more turn and more shape through the base of his leg and make his flank line just balance just a shade better when we set him into motion. He's got just a little extra set there to his hind leg in addition to that. Nice pair there in the middle. Then the young lady sheep that's going to wind up here in fourth. Another one that, in my opinion, big, long, and stretchy, and that's a high-performing kind of a sheep. That sheep just needs more muscle in general. We need to put more just pin width and power in that guy, and then just make him balance just a shade better from the side. But a nice class, real nice class winner. Congratulate those exhibitors if you would.
First place, McCray McLennan. Second place, Jordan Cruddlebaugh. Third, Delaney Vetter. And fourth, Olivia Powell. Entering the ring is David Vetter and Jane Goldie. These sheep weigh from 130 to 134.
Just two again in this class, but two good sheep in my opinion. I think they both do some things really well. To me, the sheep that wins balance is just a shade better from the side. That sheep's flank line and his underline balance, in my opinion, is just a little better. He's got more turn and just more attractiveness there out of his hip and his hind leg. We're starting to move up here in what I would call the heat weights, I guess, once we move into these 30-pounders. To me, that sheep just does a lot of things really, really well. And the other thing that I think is awfully, awfully impressive is the turn and the shape of that sheep's forerib and his rib cage is awful good, which makes sense because that sheep has a gigantic back in him. That's a nice sheep that wins this particular class. Young lady sheep that's going to wind up in second. Extremely, extremely shapely. And that sheep, I actually almost prefer him just as far as just where his chest floor sits. I like just his shallowness and his athleticism. The downfall is he'll get just a little longer there in his shoulder blade and almost even rounder there in terms of his shoulder blade. We need to tuck the edge of his shoulder in there just a skosh there and probably open him up in terms of just his forerib. A really nice set though, nice pair of them. Congratulate those exhibitors, please. don't think he's just truly quite as wide and square. He's not quite as good right there at the edge of his loin. And then in addition to that, that sheep just needs to be balanced up maybe just a little bit different in relation to his flank. He'll sit just a little deeper in his chest and get a little longer there in his shoulder blade. A really deep set, in my opinion, that you could probably develop a few different arguments with, because there's 3 nice sheep. If you would, please congratulate these 3 exhibitors on a job well done.
Entering the ring is Cody Harrell and JC Vetter. They both weigh 148.
Another close pair here, in my opinion, that I would say can go probably either way, and you can debate a couple different things back and forth. To me, the sheep that wins is just a little more my speed as far as just his look and his balance. That sheep's a little taller there at the top of his shoulder. That sheep's got a little just more extension there up front, and he still doesn't sacrifice muscle. To me, that sheep looks like an athlete, and I like just his elevation. I like his shallowness. That sheep looks the part there from the side. What makes that pair close is, to me, that sheep actually, surprisingly, is actually packing quite a little bit of cover on him. I don't think by any stretch he's too fat, but that is an advantage that the sheep in second does have, is he's just a little trimmer, a little harder handling. I think there's more roll and more turn on the top side of that sheep's skeleton. I like him there out of his hip. That sheep's got more shape and just more punch there in terms of just his lower leg and his stifle. He just, for me, maybe doesn't balance up maybe quite the same as the sheep that wins. He's a little shorter there up front. His underline and his flank line just don't quite balance maybe as right as the one that wins. Like I said, I don't know if there's necessarily just a right answer, but that's what I see in the sheep. Sheep that wins, like I said, is just a little more my speed. Congratulate those two exhibitors, if you would, please.
J.C. Vetter first place, Cody Harrell second place. All market lamb exhibitors, please come and grab your nomination cards before you leave the barn today. And if at all possible, fill them out before you leave the barn today. Please. Thank you. Your nomination cards are up at the announcing table, so please come get them. Entering the ring is J.C. Vetter with a lamb that weighed 151.
Young lady's just got one, but that's a nice sheep, a real nice sheep that I think can withstand some others with him there. That sheep's really, really shapely. That's just a good terminal kind of a market lamb, in my opinion, that still lines out and balances up pretty good. You know, we could shorten his shoulder blade up there just a nickel and elevate his chest up, but like I said, that's a good terminal kind of a market lamb that wins our single entry class. So congratulations to that young lady. My compliments.
Entering the ring is Delaney Vetter with a lamb that weighed 160. Just an announcement for the grand drive. We will be bringing in all of the firsts and all of the seconds.
As we get into our final class of the day, another single entry here, but another one that, man, I actually think's really pretty doggone good. That's a sheep that lines out and balances up pretty good, and specifically where I like that guy is when we set him into motion, how he handles his spine, his top line, and his hip and his hind leg, I think are very, very good. You know, he's a little older, he's a little more mature, and so his breastplate's starting to push forward in him just a little bit. He's probably just not quite as outlandish in terms of just his back shape, but I think that's a really good athletic kind of a market lamb that wins our final class here of the day. I congratulate you, young lady, once again. My compliments to you.
The firsts are now going to enter the ring. Now seconds need to enter the ring, and you're gonna go in, make a loop, and line up right behind the first in your class.
Well, folks, I think a really, really good sheep show that we got to sort through. And I know there wasn't just a ton of sheep, but man, I think quality was really, really good. And I know most judges will say that no matter where you're at, but I really mean it. A really good sheep show as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not a guy that really does big, dramatic, long, drawn-out champion drive speeches. You got to hear me all weekend here, so I'm going to try to keep it pretty short. But I will say, and this is more so not necessarily talking to the kids, but more so the crowd. If you would please, I think one big thing that's pretty darn important, and this is for me going throughout the rest of the week and on throughout the rest of these kids' show career, no matter who ends up winning today, do me a big favor, and no matter what, congratulate those guys and be happy for those guys that win. And that goes for no matter who wins. I'll tell you, and obviously this gets a little, this isn't supposed to be sappy, this isn't supposed to be heartfelt or anything like that. But heck, we just started, my family, we just started really trying to do this progressive sheep breeding deal here just this last year. And so as far as AIing and doing that kind of stuff within our sheep program, and I'll tell you, we had a sheep that we won our very first county fair of a sheep that like my family has actually sold yesterday. And it's crazy to me that at that point, I was friends with a lot of people yesterday morning, but after that sheep show, I wasn't friends with very many people, and I don't think that's necessarily right or a good thing. And so just if you would, please, no matter who wins here today, make sure to congratulate those kids. And if you don't like the same sheep that I do, you can be mad at me and cuss at me if you want, but make it special for these kids that end up winning, because I think it's an awful special deal to win at a county level. With that said, I think in my opinion, there's 4 sheep that are in contention. One of them, you got to ask yourself, is he just quite big enough? Another one you got to ask is if he's just quite ready enough. I don't know your guys' rules as far as if champion and reserves have to sell or if they can go on further. I don't know. So, here in a bit, I hope I'm not screwing up anybody's plans. There's another sheep that I think is ready today and looks the part, and another sheep that I think is awful good, maybe just a little extra chest and a little rounder shouldered. But those 4 are in really strong contention. I especially like the 2 that I'm going to end up using. I'm pretty darn proud of them, in my opinion, and those young people should be proud of them as well. If you would please congratulate these young people. I'll go shake the hand of your champion in reserve.
Grand Champion, David Vetter. Reserve Grand Champion, McCray McLennan.
I think agriculture is at the center of everything we do here at Farm Credit, and so the importance is we really do focus on that. We're not focused on commercial banking or business or deposits. We're here to lend money to farmers and ranchers right here in our territory.
We use an operating line every year, and knowing that we can count on that operating line and knowing that they are willing to sit down and talk about buying a piece of land is extremely important. And Farm Credit, they understand our business, they understand what we're doing out here, they understand what we're trying to do and where we're going.
Yeah, I think the importance of having a lender like Farm Credit, like us, is that we know agriculture, and so we're only focused on ag and ranching and rural America. We're not focused on, other outside issues, and so we know it, we live it, and we're here to lend to it.